Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever una in the world. This is now VOS coming to una by way of US, London, and Canada. Now, this is the Mohammed Shilon talking to una, the co-host, Mr. Victor Mengot. And we generally today, would topic could just be trending topics about politics and governance in Sierra Leone. Today, of course, is April 2nd, 2023. We just want for just generally deal with issues. We could cover the court's visitation to New York City in the current case with Samora Kamara and others. The disqualification of political parties, smaller political parties, because of the new rule implemented by the government entity that was responsible for applying the rules, the election rules, and then we will talk about that. And so we will start off with a video, but before we get to that, let me do the routine things that we normally do. And that is number one, let me allow me co-host for introduce himself, Mr. Victor Mengot, because I just want to make it tell you who he is, as he normally does, and then we'll go further. So then I go announce the telephone numbers them in the medium or the media means them where they can use for what the callers them or listeners will use for reach way. So Mr. Mengot, just briefly, let me just turn over to you, introduce yourself, and if I left out anything in terms of what the topics will be, please feel free to add them to it.
Well, Mifambulem, yeah. Mifambulem in a good afternoon, good evening, or good early morning, Usaide. As usual, I join me esteemed colleague, Shilon, for bringing this trendy topic to you. And we appreciate all the time them way in the join we and this conversation. Just for letting I know, say I don't change location this week. For the past 3 weeks, I was in the Horn of Africa, trying to improve Africa, and I'm safely back at my base in London. And just as you see me with green today, this green not for saying for particulars. This is the start of Foundation Week for the Old Prince William Association, a prominent Prince William as I am, and I wish all the Prince's boys and Prince's girls a happy week, because we're there now on the 6th of April. Just to introduce myself, me is Victor Mengot. I'm an engineer, but also I'm truly into governance, having served in the UK Parliament for 8 years, and another experience there I want to bring to you now, and also working still in the governance sector in Sierra Leone. And we hope, say, as usual, and I will be engaged with we in a civil manner and learn from each other, because there is no monopoly in knowledge. So we hope, say, we'll get a very good discourse tonight. And as in I know, we can always take any corrections the way now puts if we go get things clearly, because we are all here to learn. So let's have a very good discussion today, because we electioned very far. It's just June 24. We are now in April, although we don't pass April full. So between the month of April, May, a critical month, and some of the issues that they can discuss go relevant for them few weeks here we'll get for either maintain the same government or change the course of government in Sierra Leone. So we hope for continue the conversation within our support.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mengot. Now let me go back to now for just announce certain numbers when I can use for Richway in case when I get any comment or questions for pose. Now we start off with a toll-free number, which is 1-866-944-7722. 1-866-944-7722. If you're calling from the UK, the United Kingdom, it will be plus 44 20 80 89 1455. Plus 44 20 80 89 1455. If you're calling from Australia, it will be plus 61 2909 84 337. Again, plus 61 2909 84 337. And last but not least, if you call from WhatsApp or on WhatsApp, then you can call 1-343-997-5828. 1-343-997-5828. So these are some of the areas. In addition to that, of course, I want to also know, say this is a live show, so you can call. You will be heard and talked to live, and your comments, if sent in by whatever means, will be viewed. We can't discuss all the comments then, but we will be able to touch on some of them. So these are some of the things then. It's the way for Richway. In addition to that, of course, I can reach you on Instagram, on Facebook, So please, by whatever means, try for Richway. And last but not least, of course, you can reach Richway also, because we do the carry us also on YouTube. So that said, let me go to some of the topics that we may be discussing today. One, the continuation of the trip of the courts that is trying Samora Kamara and others concerning some financial diversion or diversion of funds concerning the Australian Chancery in New York. And as we know, about a week or more ago, the courts came to New York for view the location of the Chancery. And so the court was held out there in front of the Chancery. And so we will discuss that. We will start off with a video with courtesy from AYV. We will start off with the video from AYV on lawyer Gabidon with respect to his view as to the courts, then movement from Freetown to New York and back. And then after that, we know say there are some rule changes by the Election Commission with respect to qualification of political parties for the upcoming elections. So we are told that at the moment only 3 political parties qualify: NGC, APC, SLPP. Are the only 3, but we do know that there are smaller political parties there also that do exist under the laws of the state of Sierra Leone. So we want to just talk to everybody for see how those other political parties that are being disqualified, let we just discuss the reason, the fairness, and how helpful or detrimental it could be to the interest of the country, And last but not least, we also want to talk about, there is a current, in fact, we may include that in the discussion about the courts and trip to New York and back. There is also talk about Samora Kamara as leader of the opposition and as a defendant in the case that I just mentioned. He and some others have been asked to surrender their traveling documents. We're going to include them passports or any other travel document that they may have to the court. So one for touch on that, for see the reason behind it and what constitutes a reasonable basis to make such a demand on a defendant during trial. So that said, I will go back to my co-host. Let me go first to the control room to play us the video, and then I will ask me co-host to make your analysis, then I will follow.
From what I've listened to in the evidence, Samurai is not a building contractor. The others are officers at the embassy. The question was, how was this money utilized or whatever? Honestly, as I say so with a lot of respect, if it was me, I would not go to New York. I don't think it's necessary to go to. How can you, the fact that you should, first of all, they should have shown what the building was like before they went there. What was the status of that building? You should have an architect or a building contractor say, this was the building. Later on, this was why we gave money to put the building. Honestly, as I said, I don't know whether that is transparency. Yes, some people have never been to America, so it's good to show them.
Appropriation of public funds to the tune of 4.9 million United States dollars meant for the reconstruction of the Chancery building. So this morning, to discuss this and other issues in the studio, we have been joined by a renowned and very senior lawyer, Lawyer Francis Gabidon, a senior legal practitioner in the country, and also on Zoom we'll be joining El Cassano, the Director of Communications Judiciary of Sierra Leone. Good morning, Mr. Gabidon, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
What seems unprecedented is, with the coverage of this matter from the court here in Freetown to New York. As someone who's been in this for over 40 years or so, what does this mean for justice in Sierra Leone?
Well, as you said, it's unprecedented, because I've been in the profession now for over 50 years, and I don't know of any situation like this. I was not in court. I don't know why the judge gave that order. I honestly don't know what is the relevance of going to New York, because I think it's a case that does not have to do with New York, but probably the judge has reasons, whether it has to do with the construction of the building or not. I saw something on video on Saturday, but the judge and some of the lawyers were outside the building arguing. I honestly don't know. I don't know whether it was necessary or not. I was not a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer in that case. Honestly, I don't know what is the rationale behind going to New York. That's my honest view.
The openness. I was in court the other day when Honorable Justice Adrian Fisher was saying this is about transparency. This is about letting the public understand what is happening in court, because the matter is a public interest matter based on one of the individuals who is involved in it. Does this mean the judiciary is opening itself up to public scrutiny, and that is how it should be?
Well, it is possible, but I've seen other cases inside. I've been involved in cases when we don't have to leave the jurisdiction. You don't need to go to New York to show transparency. I mean, I don't know whether that case, because if you're talking about the way the building was before, and whether this repairs was done or not, probably, then they must call an engineer or somebody who saw the building before, and whether there was repairs done or not. I honestly don't know whether there's any justification. That's not transparency. Because what I saw was they were outside the building. What I saw, they were not inside the building. They were outside. I know that building in New York. I saw the lawyers and I saw the judge outside the building. So, and I don't know what was being said. I had a few things, but
we are trying to get the video of the judges, so you can.
I don't know what was the reason for them going to New York. That's my honest view.
Did they call it locus? Is that how they call it?
Yes, but not that. Yes, you do. Look, if there is a land case, for example, two people are quarreling over land. For example, the boundary, you have this boundary. You can go to the locus. There is a road accident. Yes, but a locus in New York, I don't know. As I said, it's time to be corrected.
You know, Lamana, you made mention of the fact that transparency was one of the motives, you know, in all of this. So what baffles me again is that the funds, the money that was used to go again to New York and spend, if it's transparency, shouldn't we not be curbing and trying to save finances in those areas? So, Lawyer Gabidon, in all of these areas, in terms of the precedents rather that is been set, you know, what do you think it has to be in terms of when it goes to other cases? Do you think, yes, this is the right platform to do so?
There is nothing wrong with transparency, except if, for example, they had an engineer with them or a contractor who would show, or probably who knew the building before and would say, this was what the building was like. It was a dilapidated building. It was going out of repairs. We gave money for certain repairs. I mean, probably that would make sense. Yeah, I can understand. But as I say, I did not see anything like that. I saw them standing outside the building. They were arguing. So I don't know what is the transparency there. As I said, I'm not criticizing. I don't know what was the purpose of them going to New York. I did not understand.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you. We
have on screen now, let's take quickly some highlights of what happened in New York. Then we'll get you, again, we're still trying to get to El Casano via Zoom, as we understand he's still in the US. So
very senior people, let us be above board. Let's be there's a matter to them. Not just going to be concerned about what we can see.
Okay.
Hello. Okay. So, without showing off on the visitation of the court to New York, we welcome ideas, opinions with respect to whether, as we hear the eminent lawyer of Freetown, Francis Gabidon, state a position, which I think he can, and as to the necessity or even the relevance of the court making a trip to New York. Does it add anything to the proof or innocence of the defendant or of the case? I personally don't think so. I don't think it has any substantive value when the court made a trip to New York. And I say this like Lawyer Gabidon say, with the utmost respect and to the court. And I think the idea of transparency, if that's the reason the court gave, I think it's a slippery slope, because it could be a double-edged sword when the court begins to talk about transparency as being a reason to conduct a trial. The danger about that is, if we're talking transparency, do the media, the news media, have the right to now ask how much it cost the government, who paid for whom, and then question the necessity, because if we're talking about transparency, these shouldn't be secrets. They should be open to the public. That's the risk I think the court takes when you start talking about transparency. I think if the reason has to do with the promotion of the interest of justice, which will have been my position, then that's a different thing. So with that said, my only other problem is with this whole thing, like Lawyer Gabidon said, maybe a building construction engineer, if it was necessary when they went to New York to have been involved and engaged in letting the general public know what was the condition of the building, whether there was, to show us a before and after condition of the building, that may have helped quite a bit. But again, people then can call, and some of the lawyers are some of the lawyers who participated, who represent some of the defendants, unless they are under a gag order not to talk, but they are free to call on this program and tell us why they too think it was so helpful to go to the location, which the Latin phrase, and they use the word locus. But so whether it was necessary to go to the location for clarify anything. I also personally have had a little problem with this case in the sense that the trip by the court was made after the government had rested. And when the government say we rest, it means they are confident they have presented sufficient evidence to establish what is normally another Latin phrase, a prima facie case. I know they don't present enough evidence we could sustain a no case submission motion by the defense. Because as a matter of practice, as a matter of procedure, both in civil and in criminal matters, when the state rests, it will almost be a malpractice if the defense, the first thing we don't get for do, now for make a no case submission. Now the judge get the option. The judge can summarily, just without even asking the other side for an argument, they can summarily say denied. Or the judge could ask the basis of the motion and let them argue the motion. But I think when the state say they rest. That means they don't present sufficient evidence for overcome any such motion. But so procedurally, again, I invite the Freetown lawyer them, and if lawyer Gabidon and others are listening to me, they can try for shed some light in the procedural aspect of what just happened. Why will the court at that stage decide for go to the locus or to the location? Because it seems to be that's a prosecutorial attempt by the court. In other words, the court is presenting additional evidence of prosecution, which to me procedurally I think is wrong. I think once the state does say that, if the court rule that and then the other side decides, say, well, we don't make a motion, we can argue a motion, then I can see if the case is so strong on both sides, then the court could make a move for clarity, for purposes of clarity, if we go to New York, if we go add anything to the court for understand the case. But like we just say, this is about money. This is about misappropriation, you know. It may also involve embezzlement, but this is about fraud. So looking at the building itself doesn't add anything to the substance of the case. These are some of the problems some of we get. But we also welcome ideas, and we even welcome the lawyers who are involved in this case to try to educate the rest of it, because people are actually calling in and asking what was the need of the court going to New York to take a look at this case. So we just want for touch on that. And for me, I've always had a little problem. And two, the other thing I don't understand, let's don't forget, because I don't want it to seem like Judge Fisher or Justice Fisher is being blamed. No, that's not the point here. It is the ACC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, that they bring the case. Okay? So now they get the burden for proving the case. Then they get the burden of proving the case beyond a reasonable doubt. So it seems to me they have not been given that latitude there for proving the case. And by the court going to New York, I think it jeopardizes the rights, you know, of the defendants them. But I don't know how the lawyers them feel, because I'm not defending any one of these guys. So the defense attorneys probably might have an opposing view to mine. But so I'm just baffled as to the manner in which the trial is going. And there is one aspect to that case there also. It is we understanding that Justice Fisher has asked that upon the return of then defendants here, and then for turn in, then for surrender, then traveling documents, like them passports, like them laissez-passer, or any documents we use for travel outside the country, So some of us question the rightfulness of that. Why is it necessary that these people turn in their traveling documents? Because generally speaking, when a court demands the traveling document of someone to be surrendered, it's usually in situation where the state, generally, the court of its own, or the court get the power for doing anything, but generally the court doesn't just come up with it. It is the prosecution that will make such a request, with an opportunity for the defense for make a counter argument, so that the state or the ACC will say, for the following reasons, or for these reasons, we think, say, the traveling documents of the defendant should be surrendered. And they have to show some indication that these defendants are at risk of flight, meaning they will run away. But so far, all we've not seen any evidence that these people are at risk of flight, that they intend to flee, for run away out of the country, you know? And then there is a political dimension to the surrendering of the documents that we will get for raise. But at this point, make I just turn them over, because the order at this point gets some political dimension, which I think, and again, I don't think it's good for the country. I think we all love a country, and we want for make the best and hopefully the brightest lead the country into progress and success. So it does us no good where we continue for just stay one place, just to make policies and laws were not beneficial to the country, but policies and laws where we no say just to keep the country in one place, where every other country in the pathway. You know? So whenever this type of issues arise, if we look at the broader picture, and no say Sierra Leone is bigger than APC, Sierra Leone is bigger than SFPP, Sierra Leone is bigger than any politician, that will die and go, but it's now with legacies and which we don't have for the country now important. Then we will stop for beginning one political party, because I am not so sure any party runs for election and try for get more parliamentarians them, or more city council members them, or more, or the president, just because at the end of it all to say, oh, this political party ruled for 100 years. I think it should boil down to what in this political do, you know? What have you done for your country? So for some of we, that's how we look at it, you know? Like I can remind people, some of us have risen above the APC, SAPP politics, with a look at things in the general national interest. So I will turn on over to my colleague, Mr. Mengo, to see what he has to say.
Well, thank you very much, Mohammed. I think just to remind listeners, the last session we had, we dealt into a lot of these issues. And why we continue with this is because, as usual, following our broadcast, then we get a similar program on TV the following Monday, where we bring Lawyer Gabidon. Lawyer Gabidon is my senior, a Prince William as well, who I've known for quite some time. My own role is to analyze the whole process, look at it as to the ends of this visit. And if we listen to Lawyer Gabidon say, he said if he was a defendant, he would not have gone to that New York. If the defendant has chosen not to do that, because there are more than one defendant. Yeah, Samora Kamara, I think, is number 4 in the case. If he used to go, then if I take as a contempt of court, then a key question. But they choose to go because they wanted to follow the order of the judge who was in charge at the time. Then the next issue, the term where they use locus quo, which means the trial is now extended to New York on a fact-finding mission. And Agladi, Gabidon mentioned 2 occasions where a court could be into a location, and both of the occasions and then scenario they fall within my own professional standing and practice. Because it's a one, you go only go on site if, for instance, it was an accident, a road accident, whereby the judge and the lawyer go for verify certain facts them, probably based on the evidence we then get about the accident. So you go to the scene of the accident and look at it. And doing some of my work as an accident investigator, now for go look at where the accident take place, who was involved, the conditions of the place, and all the rest of it, which is quite different from this old case. The other example will Gabidon give is saying if you can go to the place and they for things like a land dispute. So you get 2 people and now waste something and get land close to each other. One person they claim about the other encroaching on the land rights. The court can go there for go look at the and decide who is usurping the right or trampling on the territorial integrity of the other. But this case is completely different. None of those scenarios happens in this case. Then the next issue I go to comment on, when you talk about locus quo, they go hold the court session, which officially is an extension of the court from Sierra Leone. You know, go get a locus quo in front of a building. Just in front of a building, all team up there, the lawyer and they argue. Even people and they pass by. I'm sure the Americans wonder, what are these people doing here? You're in front of a building that already has a prohibition order stamped there where the building permit has expired. So that this particular visit and what took place in front of that building, is it official? Could that be recorded as the court and the lawyers them going there to verify certain facts? I would say emphatically no. Then we come to the question. Let's look at the basis of the case. The basis of the case is, although they may get 48 count charges, now 2 things then. 1, misappropriation of funds. Yeah, somebody must have misappropriated government funds. Or 2, diversion of funds.
All right. It appears as if Mr. Mengot is frozen, so we get some technical difficulties.
Should be. Huh?
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Continue, Mr. Mengot. Continue.
These are, I think, the basis on which the court should be discussing. But then a key issue here, which we want to look at, is how do we fund such an issue? When I mean fund, and I want to take it in a more generic sense, in the sense that we get foreign representation. We get foreign representation for a variety of reasons. Like, for instance, in America now, that Chancery building was not just a place for we diplomats, I mean, we're America. New York is the city. That's why we have a separate ambassador. And that UN ambassador is hosted there for represent Sierra Leone on all the UN issues then. Which begs the question is that when we get these foreign embassies or build, whose responsibility is it to maintain them? Because them building and they now the face of the country. I've been in England for long. We took pride in our building, the Sierra Leone Embassy, 33 Portland Place, which a very magnificent building. It was not too far again from my professional quarters, the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. Portland Place is a place which was the envy. So how did we manage to lose that building? Lack of force, lack of maintenance. And I think this happened the same with the Chancery building. But yet still, successive governments, we continued for the expand foreign representation in different countries. Egypt, some other places that will not be to think of. And when we expand there with presence in a different country, then it costs money. So that's the key question. This is an important building. We acquire for years. We don't want to disrepair. And we want to maintain it. What did we do? Let's go from the origin. We therefore go for a foreign, the Chinese, to help us to maintain what? It's like you get really us. When are they here, people are there and everything. For maintain that, you get for call other person. For maintain that host. Is this the right way for do things? Okay, let's say it's been done. Then give you the money. Or then promise you the money. Then promise you the money some years back. Not this government, but under the previous government. They said the whole transaction started under the previous government. That's why Samura Kamara was roped in. Not a lawyer, but have experience in project management and project appraisal. This was a project. Because for be able to ask for that money, there must be an estimation of how much is needed to restore the building or add additional floor space, which they say they did. We have that figure in mind. Then the next process, now the procurement process. So who is going to do the works? So I'll take them back to Lawyer Gabidon's statement, is that if they're going to that building, the first thing they should have done, I think the judge should have actually been presented with evidence of what the building was like before we decided to repair it. What was the state of that building? Judge get that information there. Then there should have been an architectural plan. What were they planning to do? So you start from comparing and contrast the origin of the building instead and what the future will be. Then we look at the amount of money we were promised. Was it adequate? Would it meet our action and we need? But we've had none of that in this case. That's my own point number one. Second, point number two. Once we estimate, we have laws in which talks about, because before we go that, it should have gone to cabinet. Cabinet would discuss it, cabinet would approve. So one of the evidence I had in front of him did not solve the meeting. The minister, Samura Kamara, as it's claimed, what did he tell it? How this is for go? and cabinet discuss them, cabinet in decision. I'm sure we'll get the secretary to the president. Any president, we forget procurement body. I think it's called PPRC, Public Procurement Regulation Committee or whatever. They would have been involved. If they were involved, there must be several tenders. Unless you are a private bidder, normally you can ask for 4 or 5 tenders, and then you get a short list of 3, and then decide who then have been the preferred contractor. In all this, we didn't hear anything about that. And coincidentally, the contractor is based in the US. Why, when we go get this court session, the contractor was not there? That's another question. Then it comes now to the flow. 1, when was the first amount of money transferred to New York? If it was transferred under the previous government, fine. How much was it? How much was transferred? 2, for what purpose was that money transferred? 3, was the money transferred used for its intended purpose? If all this information is available and those took place under Samoa Kamara's watch, then you have evidence. SEC should not be speculative. They should have all that. That's what they should do to do their investigation. But then we found out that 70% or 80% of the money that was transferred under the current regime. If that is the case, those people who were involved in facilitating that transaction should be called upon for questioning. Did they receive any money on behalf of the state? If so, yes. How much money did they receive? Yes. When they received that money, when was the money transferred to New York? Who handled the money on the other side? How much was given to the contractor? Because when you're doing those contracts, if you sign a contract with a contractor, there's always a clause. You can correct me, my friend over there. There's always a default clause. That default clause, if the contractor performed the duty, there's a penalty for that. In fact, you can even get in that clause a withholding fee, because they can retain certain amount of the payment to say until the contractor fulfill their own part of the agreement, that money would not be paid. The question is, did those due processes take place? Was it followed? I think that should be the investigation that the judge should be doing, based on the evidence provided by the Anti-Corruption Commission, where they have been the principal investigator. Last week, remember we discussed this issue, where one of the lawyers asked, say, there was a Mr. Bokari, who I think came from the Ministry of Public Works, who has some knowledge of construction or engineering, who went there to do an evaluation, which was challenged initially by the defense. But then he went back and did a second one. And we can hear the ACC commissioner says, even he was in doubt as to whether this particular individual was a witness or an expert. And he said neither. So if you brought somebody and you're now claiming that that person was neither a witness or expert, is been dismissed. So should the judge rule out that evidence? Because if the judge was to rule out that evidence, that would be in favor of the defense. Because you cannot go and look at a building, a construction, a process, a project without a technical evaluation. So the question we should be asking, is there a technical evaluation? A before and after. Before was what the state of the building was. After is what took place until it's finished. Somebody has just mentioned that in Sierra Leone, the retention amount is about 10%. Yes. Thank you very much for that comment. In issuing this contract, was there a clause in the contract which talks about the retention amount? We've had unsubstantiated statement from the contractor through social media. He has not been paid fully, even the one work that he's supposed to be doing. That was why he abandoned the work, which got the New York State that issued the building permit to stop building works. So these are the critical issues that we'll be asking. And I don't think all those things were taken into consideration as part of this locus quo, because the locus quo is an extension of the court sitting. So I will conclude with yourself as a legal man and with Lawyer Gabidon that the locus quo was totally unnecessary. And I rest and I'm open to challenges from our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, thank you, Victor. So with that said, I would like to remind the listeners that the lines are open. People are free to call, to make comments or ask questions. And but I think we don't want to beat this horse to death with respect to this case concerning Samura Kamara and others. So we are not shutting the door, not to discuss it ever. But if anyone has, well, I think we've addressed it adequately enough while the trial is still ongoing. I think the trial is ongoing. So that anybody we want for, okay, any question or any statement for make concerning that can call and we can consider that and move on.
I think we have a caller on the line.
Okay. So let me go ahead and take this call. Hello, caller. We're not necessarily going to ask you your name. You can tell me your name, but where are you calling from?
Good evening from my side. This is Fredo Mustafa again from Leicester.
All right.
We discussed this. We discussed this thing last week, and it's just a continuation anyway. You see, you say, Mr. Mengot say, then transfer 90% or 10%. You know, it's not the case actually. Waiting then they talk now. The first money we arrive now the chancery now been 2 million from I think from China was $2 million. That 2 million day now in Samura the talk say then transfer them to the consolidated fund now free tour. So it talks say if ACC wants know that money, then go find them outside it been there now the consolidated fund. Now so insane. Actually, the money we transfer for construct the building itself, 100% was transferred in 2018 and 2019. In 2011 or 12, they not transfer a penny for let them go construct a building. But the $2 million arrived in America for make them go make the building. So now in Samura talk say, then let them transfer them back to Freetown because I think they'll not be ready for for do construction. So let ACC can free to let them can look for that money. They inside they be put on a consolidated fund. That's what he say. So I just want to rectify that thing. They say the actually they regime they not been transfer anything for to work on the building. When I doing this regime, then transfer the money for make the building actually. And the short point what I just want to make, we don't talk this day about fraud, about anything. Now, Lawyer Gabby don't just come confirm again what we talk last week. This whole visit, you not get anything for saying effect fraud. Fraud, as we say, now money transfers easy for trace for whole Uda money go na account, Uda money no go na account. So it's easy. All of this now just a display. When they want to do the wrong things. I mean, we judicial system in Sierra Leone. They are notorious of doing the wrong thing. So they want just to play with people's emotions. That's why you see them embarking upon this trip. Even when they ask El Cars, how much people in travel? He lie. He say now 4 people. I lie. He say now 4 people in travel. But they ask and say, the money waste. He say now 4 people. That is a big lie. Plenty people like a plane full of them come out na Freetown, go to New York for that building. He say na 4 people. This is all what we saying. Even the judiciary, they know he talk true. So they know he talk true. So how can they dispense justice? Now the same thing. I don't know when this judiciary will wake up from their slumber, but to me, I'm not optimistic about even the trial if it's going to be independent. It's not. Because when I see again, there's another argument will come of late, where the ACC boss, they tell the judge, say, they want to let expedite them now. And then at the Macaulay, he talks, I know at the Macaulay they represent Samura, he talks, no, you don't do it. You are interfering. You know, nobody. You get all the time in the world. You have more than 2 years for fight this case. Why now, when the election time, you talk about expedite? You should have done this long before this time. So you see now, it's mapped this so the judge map this so they talk to both of them. Then you see which side justice they go. So now these are just one I like of this case. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mustafa. Let me make Mr. Mengot respond to the part about the amount that was sent to Freetown, the $2 million, as opposed to any other amount. Then I could give me your own comments, short comments on what you think. So, Mr. Mengot,
Well,
I yield to you.
I cannot substantiate or disprove that. My question I was saying is that, okay, here we have a situation where we needed help in restoring a building. Money was agreed. The total amount was agreed and promised based on the estimate, because there must have been a bill of quantities to the architectural plan. My question is, the money that was promised, when it came from the original source, which is China, who received it and what did they do with it? That's part one. Regardless of it, the second point is the time at which the construction should have started after they have actually had a contract with the contractor. How much was transferred, when it was transferred, even if not the full amount, at what intervals? The dates will be there. Because not a two way they take money, put in a suitcase you carry over. It has to go through a bank transfer. So what we have to do when you're doing such an investigation is doing that timeline in terms of sequence of events based on actual record. That's the point which I'm making. If the judge is privy to that information and whose responsibility it is to provide that information, now the investigating body, which is the SEC. The SEC it's their responsibility to provide all this information to the judge to convince the judge that the people who are charged are guilty of either abuse of office or misappropriation. That is the point. That is what the judge should be looking at. He should be looking at a sequence of events. You know, in statistics, we have what we call time series. So it's a similar thing. You have to look at the time when the events took place, who was involved, the beginning and the end process. So I cannot substantiate or deny whether the initial funds went to the consolidated revenue held before it was transferred. No, I don't have a privy to that. What we have to do, what I'm talking about, is when it leaves point A to point B, and how long it takes from point B to go to point C, which is point C, that's the embassy, and how long it took from point C to point D, which is the construction people, and what was the amount, who was involved, who was responsible for those transactions, and what the purpose of those transfers was. So I'm looking at the sequence of events rather than the actual amount that was moved throughout the transaction. And since then, according to the visitation, I don't think there's been, when we look at the building, because they showed us everything, I don't think since they issued the building permits to the time that the permit ended to the prohibition order, whether any work has been done in that building. If that is the case, why was no work done and who was responsible? And finally, a project like that should have a project manager, either somebody from government or an independent project manager. Did we have one? Because only when you have a project manager who is in charge of the whole process, that when things goes wrong, you go back to that project manager. We do that in my profession, whether you're constructing a road or whether you're doing a building or anything. So there are lapses in the system. And this should be a case study for us to understand those lapses and how we should deal with these issues in future. And that's the point I am making. I'm looking at processes and procedures rather than actual transaction.
All right. Let me just follow up very briefly on what Mr. Mengo does say. Because with a trial, this is a trial in a nutshell concerning misappropriation of public funds or diversion of public funds, or outright fraudulent conversion of public funds. And that's what these people are charged for. The substance of the case is to prove fraud. And whether these people were guilty. Let us understand. We have to understand with system. This is what I keep talking about. You see, we're playing with government situation all the time. And we're not trying to make the situation solid. We have to understand that now the government, they bring a case against people, not the courts. They bring the case, come to the courts with an accusation of wrongdoing. The court becomes the referee. The referee now for listen and make sure you conduct things fairly, which is not an easy job to do. So if the case was brought as it has been, the ACC, one of the prosecuting body, get a duty for come up with clear, convincing case that a crime or crimes have been committed. So the question simply put, has that requirement or threshold been met? So this is what the court should be focused on. So with respect to how much money was paid, consolidated fund, to me, all of that's a matter of practice, policy, and procedure. Whether money will become, whether that was part of the practice for the internal practice for take such a fund and send it to the consolidated fund account or not, that will not prove a crime, even if it was not something to be done. So we need for us to understand that. But the crux of this case is, and we have to look at it in a broader sense. This has nothing to do with being anti-APC or pro-APC or anti-SAPP. Mr. Ben Kelfala has been a ACC commissioner for quite a while, for years. This particular case was not taken up until months to the election. Then all of a sudden it is brought. Now, there is another defense. You're not going for dinner with law, but it's a common law defense. And that's the question of public policy. Is it against public policy that Samura Kamara, as a nominee for the APC party, the leading opposition party, at this time should be subjected to prosecution for anything when the elections is so close? Is it against public policy? That should be taken into account. If I were a defense attorney, I will argue that point. It doesn't have to be a statute. It just has to be a generally acceptable practice that government cannot engage on pattern and practices that are against public policy, in addition to policies that are violative of people's common law rights and then constitutional rights. Okay, so I think the defense should raise that point today. Mr. Mengot also mentioned something about the speedy trial argument. I'm not so sure about the procedure, but to me, the speedy trial argument generally speedy trial argument is raised by the defense when you think, say, the case has been sitting down for quite a while and the length of time jeopardizes your client in rights to a fair trial or the rights to a speedy trial. It is kind of strange, and I think in this setting, it looks like now the ACC commissioner, they talk about speedy trial, which is a speedy trial is a right to be exercised by the defendant, not the prosecution. Because at the prosecution, and I get almost absolute control as to how soon a case comes to trial. So it's kind of awkward that at this stage is the ACC commissioner who is advocating speedy trial. Where it's a little bit awkward. So my argument to the speedy trial thing is I don't know why is that being an issue for the ACC commissioner for the prosecution at this stage in time. So I get
just not to interrupt, I think we have a caller on the line.
Yeah. Okay. Let me take that call. Hello, caller. Where are you calling from? Who say you call from?
Oh, yeah, I call from Maryland.
All right. Yes,
yeah,
sir. Go ahead.
It's just a small correction I want to make. The trial actually started last year, a year ago. I think they just tried for make them public just this year. I think that the mistake that way the court may do. They don't make them public from where the thing starts originally, at least the public community get a thorough understanding of how the trial they go. But it actually start last year. I think Boku, they don't get Boku witnesses, prosecution witnesses. I think then they just wait for the defense, then you witness. I think that now the stage that's where the case may be. Because we will get summary of that, but not to say everybody may aware. Now that's how the thing. Then the only devil's advocate, perhaps ask, because the publicity sector of the court, the judiciary, El Casano. I mean that very in the interview. Gabi make mention say I think the local school, if not the Latin word that we use, wouldn't go now based on the arguments made between the prosecution and the defense. One they say that they add another story. The other one they deny, say no, not one story. The one they say no, now this then put this. Now this addition and do. Then the other one they say no, not do this addition. Now I think that backwards and forwards. According to the PRO for China, according to I understand to make it talk last week we the interview it was I think that is it. So I don't know actually waiting. Now the lawyer because that in defend the court the judiciary so now the reason that make the judge decide for take the trip instead of just continue the trial without going there. I just hope so far.
All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate the clarification and probably give us some better understanding as to how long, when did this trial start and how long it has been ongoing. Although I don't want to think the trial has been ongoing. When we say ongoing, I mean, Sierra Leone gets a very weird way of trying cases. They will start a case, let's say this April 2nd, then do part of them, then they pursue a criminal case, then they postpone them for 3 months, then they resume, then they do them. Well, you hardly see that in other countries. When trials begin, they are uninterrupted. They go continually until such time that both sides have presented their case and the court. Now we can see courts that can withhold judgment for some time for enable the judge to make a thorough assessment or a decision of the case. But this interruptive type of trial within Ghana, Sierra Leone, off again, on again kind of trial is, I don't want to say it's unique to Sierra Leone, but it's a very unusual procedure in terms of the standard of trials worldwide. Because even they do it in civil cases in Sierra Leone, you'll get one civil case, it will take 7 years. A court will go obtain evidence in one from one or two witnesses, then the case is postponed for years, then obtain one or two witnesses. And I think, say, to some extent, it's unfair to one party or the other because witnesses die. Witnesses' health deteriorate. Witnesses' memory fade. So when you make trial go that long, you do jeopardize, if in a criminal case, you do jeopardize the evidence, you do jeopardize the rights of the defendant to them, but more so that even the state loses because witnesses may tend to forget certain things. It may not be as fresh in their minds as they would have been if the trial had taken place much earlier and it was continual or within just such short intermission. But now what you get in Sierra Leone will get so calling us and telling us this is a trial that's been going on for like a year and a half just makes me wonder. And then again, if the caller will call us back and try to tell us, because it seems to me it was just recently that, to my understanding, when I say recently, in the past month or so, that the government or the prosecution rested. So is that true or not? What was the compelling or redeeming social value for the case not to have gone steadily forward, for the trial not to have taken place? How is that advantageous to either side? And but be it as it may, the reality is the elections are just a few months away. Samura Kamara is the presumed or the actual, not even presumed, leader for the largest opposition party. Is it fair within the bounds of fundamental fairness? Is it fair for a trial to be conducted at this time, or should the trial be suspended until after the election before it continues if they've waited this long? Because I think as a matter of public policy, it is not good for the country. And I want people to know, I'm not saying this because, well, that will not give Samura Kamara any added advantage if the case is continued anyway, if the case is postponed. In fact, it will just add more pressure on him because the case will still be hanging there. So other than the case being postponed to indicate fairness until after the June election, I don't see what advantage Samura Kamara will have if the case is postponed. But I think it's in the best interest of the country and in the interest of public policy that we avoid this appearance of unfairness or obstructive type of legislations or practices just for undue advantage of the government over individuals. Because let's remember, at the end of the day, it's not Samura Kamara versus SFPP. This is not the case of Samura Kamara versus anyone else but the government. So should the government be playing this game of trying for proceed with the trial? I think the defense should make a motion for the case to be held, not to be speeded up, but to be held in suspense until after the trial, because if we talk about appearance of fairness, I think that would be the best way to go. And I'm saying this as a matter of policy. And I think we know it does the country a lot of good. Now the country good benefits, not to Samura Kamara, because if they try him later on, if the evidence is there, he will be convicted if they get the evidence. Nothing changes. But it's definitely not fair when you get a nominee already with a couple of more months to go to an election, campaign, they are gearing up to start a campaign, then you put the opposition leader on trial, and then trying to tell the judge the trial should be speeded up. So for me, as a matter of public policy, I'm a position down there. I'm just saying that. I know some people will not like it because they feel say we for do anything possible for subdue the other party, but it hurts the country. It helps one side, but it hurts the country, and we're not moving forward. And the judiciary, the lawyers should push hard on this kind of things. They should take these matters to court.
I think we have another caller on the line.
Yeah. So, hello, caller. Please.
Yes, Mr. Shula, it's me again. This is for Mustafa. I just want to be a short one. I've been reading that guy when they talk about the judiciary or within as they say. Me not possibly follow the judiciary. Even at one point, they sentenced one boy for 1.5 million loan telephone. We didn't see them for sending a prison for about 5 or 6 years. I sent the message to the judiciary saying, give me the details for make I pay that money, make them not waste that young man in life for something will not be even $100. They not respond to me. I tweet again, they not respond to me. So what the person just they try to talk about for just it just if you because if you listen to what the cast they say, that guy don't bring politics in the judiciary. That guy need to go out fervently they defend the SLPP before the elections and after the election. None of the near job. So if you listen to the cast and know what they say, you know will ever get the other side of the of justice. This case when they talk about I read from the mouth of Justice Fisher. He talks say this case they finish before August 2022. He talk and at one point now he talk about say before the end of the year. So let me tell you what will happen at court. What will happen at court when they count this case? All the people who come testify. Now, then they call people of the ruling government about this money because none of them not mentioned Samura in name. Samura in name only come about that $2 million. Let me talk again. So all the people who can testify now the current administration and the one that we don't send New York, now they call. So based on that, now in the case, you look at the case be stalled, the case be stalled. Maybe I know we want confirm, maybe them they wait for let them coronate this man as a flag bearer, and then the case wake up again, and I think it seems like so this case be stalled. Now they put this case. Even one journalist even thinks say the government don't abandon the case because if they judge on Samura in favor, then the international community is not going to be happy with the government. If on the other hand the government lose the case, it not going to look good. They will say you know see now this is a political game met out against this man. So then if you say I make them put that case away until after election, and only for this case for wake up after the nomination, the guy you don't win the flag bearer position. But this case we don't stall na court. December na in stop for a reason this case. They not be count again na case na court. This case because now I just want to tell this other fellow when they talk about your Casa. Any day Casa not talk, he get a political thing because he's lying. He bring lies into the judiciary. That kind of person not forever be a spokesperson because if you don't come out for a political party and then everybody know and say in a SLPP person and you know for dinner court. Just like they go give the Deputy Minister of Justice, now the Secretary General of the SLPP, you know, for they in that position, they because already get a political party where they represent, you know, for dinner court. So I just call for make a bring that out the attention, say that El Casa no, not a possible way you taking things because El Casa no, now possible way it even make people doubt the judiciary more than ever before. Thank you very much, guys.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa. Mr. Mango, you get any comment?
Now, I think we've actually done a lot of justice to this case in terms of the legal part, the procedural part, due process, and want scholars to know that since the case is ongoing, we don't want to delve too much into the matter, and we will allow the court to continue. We look forward to the continuation of the sessions in Freetown, and then we self go retire now and wait until then for do further analysis on this case. I think this is a good point to let it hang on and look at issues that, because I think one of the key issues that all these things that are happening at a very critical time in our politics and governance system. And since we are talking about politics and governance, I think this is the best time for us to look at the next issue which has come up since we deal with trendy topics on this week, is the recent confirmation that only SLPP, APC, and NDC are currently qualified to contest the election. And I think it would be good for us to look at how did that come about, which is because the third time in history, this is not the first, this is the third in history we are proposing to use the proportional representation system, although each one was different because the first one was a single constituency after the return to civilian rule. The second one was when we introduced clause 38, when they use the proportional representation system for the elections 2002, and then now it's brought to 4. So what does this mean for political inclusion on this recent announcement that only 3 parties are currently qualified to contest? And let's look at why has that happened and what's the basis for that. And just for give our viewers just a background, the proportional representation system, let's take the argument from the government, because we can get the government spokesperson. In say, this PR system, now a blessing for this. And the argument was that if you take election when I be post past the post, if you have been PR system, neither NGC nor C4C forget the number of seats they are having. So now it gives them an opportunity. So if it gives them the opportunity, why is it that 3 parties are currently qualified to contest? Bearing in mind, during the last election, we had 17 political parties. And for the background, what is the PR system all about? And now look at the election, because you get to continue to what they talk about. Let me remind viewers and say now 4 different elections we get. First, you get the election of paramount, which this paramount chief will get 16 districts. So each of those districts has to have 1 paramount chief representing them. Then we have the local government election. And there's also a change, because for the first time in our history, we use the PR system for determining who that will become ward councillor, based on the fact that for each forget 1 councillor seat, they can forget 4.6% of the total votes cast in that particular region. I'll give an example. If you take Western Urban, where you get 80 wards then, so forget 1 councillor, you get forget minimum of 4.6% of the vote cast for the whole of Western Urban. Then again a PR system. Then the third one, now the MPs then. And the MPs then again, this district block system, where they don't do all the calculation, where the party will get a list, and that list they then go determine how much seats they will get per district, where the minimum threshold na 11.6% for 1 seat. Again, then under the PR system. Then the 4th one, now the presidential election, where they still use first past the post. So for the 4 election, what they get, 2 na PR system, 2 na first past the post. And the key question is, has these changes widened the political space, or in any way support political inclusion? Because what we know, in most countries, they get smaller parties. even in the UK where I live. And you get the two main parties here like Labour and Conservative, but then we can get the third first when a Liberal Democrat. But you got the smaller parties then. And even if you take the Liberal Democrats win at the third force, they don't get enough muscle or manpower or even money for field candidates in every constituency. So they go only focus outside them today and get where they make sure say they go win that particular constituency under the simple majority of first past the post. We are not trying to say one system is better than the other, but from the argument and the decision where government tell we say the PR system will favor small parties, why now we're having an announcement that only 3 parties will qualify? So that's the question and that's the issue that we will continue to debate. And I want your own opinion on that as we go into the debate.
Yeah, Mr. Mengo, you want me your own contribution to what you were explaining?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, you see, always my position, I keep pressure in the legal profession to help to improve the system. The system is not going to improve itself. And the system, at the end of the day, is people. But the lawyers have a very high obligation for force fairness into the system. Because as you say, the last main elections, you didn't have any such critical or technical interpretation with respect to the PR system. There were smaller political parties. Almost all of them qualified. And people were free to support whoever they please or run under what political party they feel. I think when there is no clear legislative, let's say now we get the body responsible for setting the electoral conditions there. The lawyers have to challenge this agency of the government where they set conditions that are restrictive because they are not inclusive. They are restrictive. They are restrictive in the sense that they enforce people in a way might not want or not share the philosophy or the ideology of APC or SAPP. If one is being forced into one of their 2 main parties here. And because there are a lot of people who believe, say, these 2 parties are one and the same. They are just 2 sides of the same coin. So if you not believe in the 2-party system, you believe in multi-party system, why is the agency coming up with rules of this type, disqualifying smaller organizations them or political parties them just by virtue of certain threshold now when they change? And in that respect, I think we're going to discuss the Femi Claudius-Cole take on the whole situation when they don't change now from the government does seem for change the policy from, and the old practice was you pay for who that a party they put out there for run. Okay, they pay for a large number of candidates, some of whom are vacancies that you people are not going to fill. Only people who are running for certain ward or certain positions or certain constituency that the political parties were allowed to pay. They were allowed to pay for them party then they to qualify them the fee to qualify them for run. But now what you would see is that they don't pile up, they don't multiply, even the substitution list. So the 16 candidates thing, where them they say, okay, that be the primary list down there, of which then go pay a certain amount that I don't quite remember again. But so we go count to like 56 million Australian leons. That has
it's 3.6 million old leons per candidate. So I
okay.
think the example
So yeah,
where Femi Claudius Kolgi, he used one constituency, one area within the Western Urban area. And Western Urban area gets 16 seats. And that for members of parliament, and 40 seats for ward
for
councillors.
city council. Yeah.
Yeah, ward councillors. So that's the example she used in terms
Okay.
of, yeah.
Okay. So now the question becomes, but now she is saying, and again, I think you can analyze them even better than I can. She's saying now that there was supposed to be a list of substitutes. That list there now, you have to pay for the names that were appear there too. Am I right?
Just to clarify that, let's compare the two systems. Now I make people go understand. So if we take under the first past the post system, right? You have 16 constituencies in Freetown, right? In one days, as we've been saying, then days and days, you can get East 1, East 2, East 3, West 1, West 2, West 3. Then you can get Central 1, Central 2. Then you can get Mountain Rural. That now, you don't go now to the you go now to rural Freetown. But if you take the Freetown at its own urban Freetown now, we get 16 seats. Under the first past the post, a political party can say, okay, let's take area where come out. Mina Fulatong area come out. Party X can be neither APC or SLPP. But because they get a particular candidate who is very popular in that region, go and stand and win that city. So the party then can submit candidates based on who side they feel to say they get more chances of gaining a seat. So if now 16 seats and then a Freetown, the Western Urban, you know, say you only get chances of getting 5 MPs then out of that 16. You can now pay nomination fee for them 5 MPs then they. Just one. So now 5 nomination fee you get for pay. So what in the say now, under this new system, with the 16 seats, you get your first 16 names them, we get for pay for. But then you get a reserved list of names when another 60, which is 30, we make 32. So you will get for pay for 32 nominees. So even if you convince somebody for can join your party, for stand as an MP for your party, given this current system, that person they go think twice for say, where the campaign nomination fee and spend money per campaign, when we party not strong generally in Western Urban area, for even self get that 11.6% threshold for low win one seat. It don't make sense. So it's a disadvantage to the smaller parties, and that's the point she's making.
Okay, and that's the reason why her only option is to go to court, is to contest the unfairness of the rules, that it puts an undue financial burden on the smaller participants and puts certain areas at a tremendously disadvantageous position just because they are not member of the two political parties. So I don't know how else you could contest that, because the rule itself is unfair. And this is something, according to Femi Claudius Cole, that has not been long since this rule, the rule change came into place, because that wasn't what was in effect. It was only recently done. So why should the agency be allowed to be playing with the rules, where the rules should be stagnant or permanent, and to work not to the disadvantages, not to the disadvantage of any other political party, but for the best interest of the country. So if Claudius Cole did not challenge that in court, and the way you challenge him, not to a matter of getting a full-fledged trial, that's what you get temporary. That's the reason for a temporary injunction. You know, go make a case, a presentation to the court as to why that rule they should not be put into effect, that the old rule should stay until such time that the court can hear the matter, the merits of the case, and make a well-balanced or well-thought-out decision. Because unless the opposition party they had, the small party them, what is going to happen, and this also is just going to work to the disadvantage of Sierra Leone. Because this is what a lot of people believe now in Sierra Leone. And this is why the country, I don't see much future for that country there. Because most people believe now, for say, if it is not APC, it can for be SLPP. If it is not SLPP, it can for be APC. But we know, say, smaller political parties them can gang up or come together for influence election outcomes. But if the laws are being passed the way they try to pass them, or the rules that are being applied continue for eliminate certain political parties, at the end of the day, it hurts the country. You see, this is the problem. It doesn't, because what happens is a vicious cycle. Whoever is in power will begin to play with the rules, because we're not getting no permanent rules. We don't give arbitrary power to the commissioner to change the rules
So
as
hold
he
your
feels.
thoughts here. We have a caller on the line.
Hello, caller.
The opposition party there, what is going to happen? This also is just going to work to the disadvantage of
Is that a caller? Hello, caller. Hold a second. Hold a second. Yeah, because I don't know. Hello, caller. What's your name? Who's side you call from?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Good evening from inside. I call from France. My name Abdul.
Okay, Abdul. Thanks for calling. Yeah,
thank you, sir, for giving the platform.
Yeah. So tell us what's
Mr.
on your
Shilon
mind.
and Mr. Mengo, I want to thank you so much. Now, one thing I want to contribute: we country will suffer from one thing, and that one thing, if we're able to forget in our country, maybe our country will go before. That thing they would suffer from our country don't make they like it. They would only number 2 from the 25 poorest countries in the world, with number 2. Because they suffer from that one thing, they win at truth. And inside the Bible, we get 50 verses them where talk about the truth. And that thing, this court where you mentioned, so Mr. Shiron, 2 not in another court. 2 not there with them, we presidents here. They talk to, even when in the campaign, maybe then we go see them say yes, then why they come. But now ships them inside, wolves them inside ships. The moment when they hold that seat of power, they come to this lie back. And this lie don't make them like it today. We country day number 2 among the poorest countries in the world. So they suffer with this one grain war. There are these two. Now my contribution this net. Me the two. Whether or not you talking about that country, the two and also that country make all along that they pray to God like commodity. And when it's a don't commodity, so pass I go to go for go visit because two no go ever in another country. The people now lie, so lie. Una thank you so much. Now that's my own contribution.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your calls. Please always stay tuned and make whatever contribution that comes to mind. Every bit is appreciated. Yeah, going back to you, Mr. Mengot, what do you make of what the gentleman is saying? Because my thing is, I was just simply saying, one can see through. Oh, there comes another caller.
There's another caller on the line.
Yes.
Let's take another caller.
Hello, caller. What's your name? I'm sorry.
Nami again. This topic is out again about the PR system. Let me just go in a post video follow Salonicis a lot. This PR, the main reason we didn't call this PR now for let SLPP get seats na the western area and some part of the north, simply because those people when they vote at that part they mostly the SLP they get votes they like now Freetown. I don't think they don't ever get less than 30% of the vote in Freetown. So there was a town hall meeting where Umar Fofana proposed this to the president. From that time day, now he hold up into hand and he be helped by civil society, 2 of them, when Tommy and the other guy, his name I don't escape me. So where they do the surveillance day. So from that time they don't hold up. So now the result don't come because let nobody no doubt again why was the PR. Because now the small party them have been eliminated. And let me tell you there is something that's going on here. Because this is not on connect. This announcement by I call it NPRC, I call it PPRC, say that 3 parties then qualify. If you see again, it connected to the court case. You know why? Me talk so. I did not so many the reason more. Because let's imagine, say, we don't eliminate Samura from the race. There's another person we know they think like the president. If they on that ballot day, maybe the APC supporters they might vote for that candidate. For instance, let me give like Claudius Cole. If they on paper for vote, we don't go eliminate Samura. People will go likely vote for Claudius Cole because let me give you an example. There was a by-election in Waterloo where APC boycott. They say if NEC not do this, they know they make, they know they participate. Claudius Cole in party being get 49% where APC SLP get 51% na that area there, that by-election there. To me reason, I see now the reasons why then they try for make sure say would have to be on the ballot. Because for now we know say the LGC and the SLP they are working it out. I mean which time coalition they make we don't know yet. Okay. So if they don't make sure say no other person where they think like minds, then at the ballot. So it will be easy for let the SLP win this election. So I see I'm on that angle there. So now, like when they talk about this PR, it don't defeat its purpose. Now it make Emmanuel Tommy Kanden there, Ibrahim Tommy Kanas radio then they are talking. Make them review the threshold because for get 12%, go 11.97, almost 12%. Forget 12% for an independent candidate or a small party. No go easy. Let them put on board, but they will not put it down. This PR now purposely for let SLPP win seat them. They can always get like Nakodadugu, Falaba. They always get around 30% that area. So all of those things now in the one look, even at Cambia back then they get votes in it. So all of those things now in the one translating, I make it count this PR. This be have the only purpose, not for the small party they move. Then they don't eliminate them. Now for the SAT to get sit them. Now that's I want to add on this debate. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Shiram, you go ahead. There is some one of our regulars who just sent a message today. He said, "We are today complaining about our constitution. Have forgotten quickly that we spend billions to review. The same people complaining today are the same people who refuse to implement the reviewed constitution. No one is discussing their short." I want to answer to that, respond to that query, because it's not good for people to be myopic. The first constitutional review we had in Sierra Leone was under the NPRC, and that was chaired by no other person than who later became President Ahmed Tijan Kaba. And we know the people in the NPRC by then. That's what we call review number 1. Then we had review number 2. Review number 2 was under Tijan Kaba himself when he came to power. And I'm sure that was the one that the eminent Dr. Peter Tucker and the rest was involved in. That again never saw the light of day. So first NPRC, second one SLPP, then the third one was the Cowan Constitutional Review, which in my view was one of the most comprehensive. And for our listeners to know, we're glad this person made this comment, because the broadcast we're going to do on our next couple of broadcasts will focus on this constitutional review. So we have review number 3, which is APC, under the Cowan Commission. Yeah, Justice Cowan. And then we have review number 4. Review number 4 was under this government. And the review number 4 was actually government nominated people who review the Constitution. It is on record. So when that review was done, what we were told, because when you're reviewing a constitution, you have entrenched clauses in that constitution. If entrenched clauses are in the constitution, the only way you can change it is through a referendum. So what we were told by this very government is that they will deal with issues in the constitution that do not tamper with the entrenched clauses, and they will review it piecemeal. So if our commentator is talking about people who refuse it, it's been refused by all sides. And it's refused by all sides because of one reason. Our constitution gives dominance to the president because he has enormous constitutional powers, regardless of which party he represents. And for any president to change that constitution is like turkeys voting for Christmas. Or now we are in Ramadan. It's like sheep and cows voting for Eid, looking towards the end of Eid, because that's when they're slaughtered. So none of them will do it. So in talking about people refusing to look at constitutional review, it has been ongoing by military governments, by 2 grains of SLPP, by one of APC. So it is something that has been going on for long. So nobody can point finger at any political party or politician. It's just that. And even with the PR system, for me, one of my main concerns, that's why I will link it to the PR system, is that in our present constitution, there's enormous powers given to the party. I would not quote the section, but I'll reference it. For instance, in our constitution, there's no provision for anybody to stand as an independent candidate for presidency. But you can stand as an independent candidate for an MP or a ward councillor or a head of a municipality. So it's only a political party that can nominate you as a candidate for presidency. Secondly, we still have that beast, which is, I think, is 78F of our constitution, which says if your party disowns you, you lose your seat, regardless of the wishes of the people who voted you in. And under this PR system, let's go back to our topic, because I'm glad he brought it in, so I'm just trying to make the link, is the party which is in control. And I'll tell you why. Because when the party is preparing its list, it's the party who decides who is going to be top of that list. If, for instance, we take Freetown, for example, the party has done their work and they realize that it's possible to get 4 seats out of the 16. Those 4 seats, the primary names on those lists would either be the highest bidder or people who are favored by the party, not even influenced by party members. So the PR system also, fear, as we were saying, it entrenches the power of the political party over the electorate or members of their own party. Then another issue which comes to mind, which I think we also plan to discuss, is this new gender and equalities bill, where you are talking about 30%. PPRC said they were going to come out with a rule of how party to get into that. Think about this issue about women representation under the PR system. We don't just want women, any kind of woman. We need competent and able, astute women. So again, it's the party that decides which of the women candidates they will give priority. So these are, in my view, are some of the pitfalls of both the Constitution and this new PR system, which we were told will give representation to women, which from what I've said, I'm not quite convinced, will also give it opportunities to smaller parties to be represented in Parliament. So I'll rest there and I'll allow you to comment on my summation.
Yeah, I think the caller or the commentator misses the point. And I think he's stuck with his political party mentality and believing, as most Sierra Leoneans do, at home and abroad, that the ability to maintain objectivity in the best interest of the country should not ever be considered, because what matters is who is in power, what party is in power, not trying to implement policy that is good for the country. So the caller or the commentator, I want to ask him, say, is he comfortable with things as they are? Some of them here would point out, if the current government were to lose power, Is it comfortable to say if the succeeding government come, that these things, the way what would they say need for the change or for the improve? That government they empower, use them. Is he going to be speaking or singing in praise of that new government they using anything say what would they say for are not conducive or good for the country? Because what happen with a lot of the callers, then people still are saying, see, like we, or like me, I am talking about what is good for the country, not what is good for a political. Because how is it helpful that you go get a section in the Constitution where say if your political party oust you, you should be out completely when you were elected by the people. Okay? And we don't see many, because the people that we make that as part of the Constitution, they had a vested interest. They were short-sighted, you know? In fact, some of the things I want to complain about right now are policies that were baked or put into place by the APC. And the benefit is now being reaped by the SAPP. So how long are we going to play this game? And nothing seems to be going forward. So like Mr. Mengot point out, what is wrong with someone? Why restrict the ability of someone? Well, number one, why force someone to be a member of a political party to run for the presidency? Why? Why couldn't a strong, able candidate, a visionary, someone with the potential of being a good leader? Again, like I said, and who does not believe in any of the ideologies of APC and SAPP or any political party? Why should that person be forced into that situation then? You know? Why? So these are some of the things then we talk about that some people are not able to grasp. We are talking about what is good for the country. You know, what is good for the country. We are not saying what is good for APC, what is good for SAPP, and people are not able to just get over that. You see? I'm sorry. So people are not able to get over that. So that's the thing I'm trying for people then to understand. So the gentleman what they call and the complaint, I know say he sees things strictly from a political party standpoint. And I can almost bet 6 years ago, he may have been one of those standing on the sidelines complaining about APC. We are saying make the platform or the requirements open, not restrictive. Do what will enable, because the system has worked well. Nobody can argue that before, when 10, 15, 17 political parties were participating in general elections, what harm was caused to the country? In fact, we benefit a lot because we see coalitions being formed. The Charles Magai, the Timu Bangura, you know, with Dr. Karafa Smart and other people. So we see say will be benefits. And so instead of us making them practices and their work, we keep curtailing them, bringing them half and half and half. People have to bear in mind that any leadership will try for restrict or constrict the system for give benefits to one group over another, political party group. And let me also suggest to people, you guys are missing the point. A good many of the immediate beneficiaries of political party or political system are not necessarily people of one tribe. These are mostly opportunists of all tribes. Like SAPP get their own artists. They get their own artists. We believe in just doing this kind of thing. When they own believe that APC should not. I'm not forgetting that APC draw the questions. Now they set some of them policy out. You know? So my thing is, I'm just simply trying to let people understand that we need to start looking at things in the interest of the country. But if we continue to look at it this way, and now we don't say, look at how hopeful people were about NGC, this, that, and everything. Are we not hearing now that NGC is about leaning to one political party? Are this all this good for the country? So I'm glad the question was asked, but there is no reason why an independent cannot run for the presidency. If you get the vision, if you get the financial wherewithal for run and lead the country in the right direction, because some of us don't believe in APC and SFPP. Some of us don't believe in the other small parties. So it means there is no room for some of us who do not believe in the two parties. 62 years of political history, people are, with total lack of progress, people are saying belong to one of them. So this is my comment in terms of people who are talking about APC and SFPP are not complaining before. I don't get the logic about people are complaining now, they nobody complained before. I just don't seem to get the drift of the argument today because everything takes time. I may not have argued about something because I may not have been conscious of the existence of that, that kind of stuff. So let me stop right there. Mr. Menga, I'll switch back to you.
Well, I think we've actually dealt with these issues tonight. And I think in the interest, what I'll say now, we will continue to monitor the trend, the issues. And I'm glad that this issue of the Constitution came about. And we want to promise our viewers, of the people that, there's one comment which why wouldn't Bio done it where others failed? Is he not a Sierra Leonean? How much does he hate Sierra Leone? Well, I don't know what you mean. Why don't Bio done it where others failed? But my only comment is that our present president came with a new vision, a new direction, and change. And he made us 3 promises. He said he was going to fight 3 wars. And those wars were corruption, indiscipline, and poverty. That's what is promised in his inaugural speech. Corruption, indiscipline, and poverty. If we believe that he has done it, let's give him a chance. I would say that. The question is, those 3 things, he made lots of promises. Yes, we've seen him going around the country recently, meeting people from different parts of the country, saying thanks for them for voting him in 2018. And that's all. And again, there's another comment. What you guys take on banning street rallies in Sierra Leone, for or against? In responding to that particular question posed, it would depend on what you mean by street rallies in Sierra Leone. There are different forms of street rallies. If you're talking about political rallies on the streets, banning political rallies, we have to look at the legal implication and the constitutional implications. For the time being, campaign period has not started. And street rallies are a natural trend in people supporting their preferred political candidates. And when you talk about street rallies, we saw it Let's remember, the SLPP party had their convention, not in Freetown, but in Bo. But when they came to Freetown and had another at Bintumani, whereby they were going to tell people their achievements to date. And that was the time for their preferred candidate for mayoral election, Bento Kamara, who moved from the east end of Freetown with a large convoy during working week, heading for the Bintumani Conference Center. Would you determine a street rally? If it's street rally, do you think it should be banned? If we're asking whether it should be banned or not, what is the constitutional basis for that? Well, the policy says political rally. We see business people suffered and innocent people suffered from those street rallies. Yes.
That is not factual.
If it's a political, yeah?
That is not true. I think he's saying that some of these things were provoked by the very authorities. This is the same guy raising all these things because he's so stuck in this political party thing. He sees things no other way, but that's fine. It's the same guy.
Yeah, to answer him back, if you talk about political rally, you see business people suffered and innocent people suffered from those street rallies. Let's be realistic and factual. Of the two parties, of all the other parties, let me just don't restrict for two parties. Which party actually had a street rally during working week? Was it banned? If it wasn't banned, we have a police force that didn't ban it and see nothing wrong with that. It means it's not illegal. So why now put that point? And let's call a spade a spade. It's the government in power. That was their own show of strength in the capital. And the police did not stop them. So if they can do that, why now shift the goalpost and say, okay, let's ban street rallies? Only when the other side does it. It comes back to what me and my co-host has been saying. Let's don't just start making statements or changing rules as and when it suits our political dispensation. And that is our problem in Sierra Leone. Let's move from the Red Army and the Green Beret. Let's think Sierra Leone. Let's think the tricolor, as the French will say, the green, white, and blue. What is good for Sierra Leoneans? After all, the people who go out to rally, they rally either out of wanting to let off steam, because we know with people they all like dance, because from top to bottom, all man they dance. We recently see our erstwhile politician Alpha Khan and the chairman of SLPP doing the boogie. So dancing is part of our culture. Some people go to rally because they promise them t-shirts, so then they don't go miss them, give them small thing. So something that small thief now 5,000 and get that money in there. You go able to buy lafidi for it. So all these things are influenced by our politicians and political thinking. So it's time for us as Sierra Leoneans to start thinking about how we follow our politicians. And I must end by reading a statement, and I'll leave everything to you. I think I've exhausted my own. I'm against street rally from a long time ago. Street rally is primitive, out of fashion, and is an outdated form of political rally. Every man is entitled to his or her own opinion. And I'll end it there and hand over to my co-host to do the roundup for tonight.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mengot. Again, in fact, let me start off by saying I appreciate the commentator who believes, who has been sending in comments about street rally and the Constitution. And I really seriously appreciate his dedication in listening to us. And I hope at some point in time, he will be able to convince us, or we'll be able to convince him that we have to rise above the tribal, political, sectional aspect of our politics. I don't share his view that street rally is primitive. Demonstration or street rally is part and parcel of a democracy. You start banning street rally, then you move into dictatorship. But that said, I will stand to defend your rights because I think that's what democracy is about, differences of opinion. And we appreciate the fact that this person is doing it in such a way within the bounds of civilized behavior. We greatly appreciate his view. So please keep on listening and keep calling. And we encourage others to keep listening and keep tuning in. So thank you all for listening. We will be talking about issues of interest, common interest to all of us next week, Sunday, same time. So until then, have a good evening, wherever you may be in the world, or good morning or good afternoon. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye.